All right. Thank you very much for the great introduction. Now, I had a whole talk track about the importance of connection, about bringing this community together and connecting over this noisy and fast-paced and complex market that we find ourselves in, no matter which industry we belong to, right? But I'm also conscious that we are between you and connecting with each other. So we'll keep it brief. I am really excited about this group of leaders. They have so many nuggets of value to share with you. So before I hand over, show of hand, who feels like they are already at scale with any of their GenAI implementations? All right, we've got some work to do. All right, Hitesh, I'd like to hand over to you first to introduce yourself briefly and share a little bit about how you are creating value in your organization.
Yeah, I'm Hitesh Sajdev. I manage startup investments, partnerships, innovation and emerging technologies at ICICI Bank. And talking about our AI journey and, so I'll bifurcate this into three broad areas, where we are focusing on. So one is, models, foundational models, and to my mind, models will be commodity, and we're seeing a lot of models emerging, and as an organization, we'll have to create a approach of maybe, multi-model approach and see which model works, best for which use case. And then also in India also we have now Sarvam and Bharat Gen. They're building, India training models on Indian languages. So that would be another, kind of aspect in terms of whether you go for Indian models or Western models, right? The second aspect is about creating infrastructure. I don't think, any of the enterprises today are investing big time into creating, infrastructure, H100s or maybe sometime H200s, but that's very expensive, right? So unless and until you figure out the outcomes and the ROIs, putting money into the infrastructure, you will not get support from the management. So, and that's where I, heard, Microsoft Azure and AWS can be, helpful in terms of doing quick, POCs, doing, quick experiments, and then see if things are scaling up. And if it does scale up, then actually go for investing into infrastructure. And the last part, which is the applications, that's what we are most interested into. And there we have kind of figured out a lot of use cases. While AI traditionally been using for predicting customer behavior, predicting delinquencies in our portfolio, but with the GenAI, we're kind of toggling around in use cases in the area of fraud and risk management. How do you identify those patterns? Second is compliance. Today you end up getting so many circulars from the regulators, whether it is SEBI, RBI, IRDA. So how do you cope up with that on an ongoing basis, right? So that's another big area where we are building models to, one, it will identify, interpret those circulars, and on back end you have workflow automation which can automatically take care of it. The other area is, how do you build a lot of voice bots or voice calling, right? And ensure that the interactions with the customer or are being handled by voice bots in a much emphatic manner. So that's another big area where, and many times you end up selling products. To give an example, like for example, insurance products which you are mandated to sell by the government. These are all insurance products which are for 400 rupees or 450 rupees premium. Now you can't deploy humans to sell those products, but it's mandated. So, using AI, those products you can actually sell it, and not only just do the calling, but when I say AI implementation, it's about end to end. It's not about calling a customer, it's about calling a customer, taking the consent of the customer to debit his account, debit his or her account, debit his or her account, issue the insurance policy, and that's where you see that end to end being handled by your AI, and that's where the superlative advantage comes in. It's not about just using AI for calling a customer and taking yes or no. So that's another big area which we are kind of using and toggling around with it, right? But yeah, large part of our journey is in terms of uh, regulatory constraints, in terms of we still don't have regulatory clarity in implementing some of the AI models at scale. So the 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 debate is about whether you take models, in-house it, fine-tune it, and create prompt engineering layers on top of it. Use RAG to kind of have external one-way communication, right? So these are the couple of things we have been toggling around. Whether did some experiments on Llama 3, in-house it, fine-tuning it. So a lot of these are, but a lot of these are when it comes to GenAI, a lot of it's at experimentation stage, and we'll see the real outcomes in maybe a near future. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That was really interesting. And actually, I was going to go to Ajit first, but I might come back to you because I think there's some correlation between also what we discussed the other day on how do you equip your team and each person in your team with an agent. So I might hand over here to Ankit to talk to us a little bit about what he's seeing.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Friday evening, drinks are waiting, and we are all talking about AI global GAN. I'm also here to give you a little more global GAN, but as you said, I'll try not to talk about the jargons, but the actual practice. Okay. So in our organization, there are largely two strategies that we work on when we look at this entire AI game. One is democratizing the AI, and I'll explain to you how do we really do that. And the second is don't implement anything just for a hobby, right? If you want to do it at scale, right? Now coming back to the first point, to explain a little more, what we have done is we have actually created our own Magic GPT. It's an internal workbench where we have actually hooked all the models available, right? And we have given it to the entire organization to play with, to experiment. And in case anybody comes with a good use case which can be scaled up, then we kind of take a call through a committee whether to build it or to buy a solution from outside. The second piece on democratizing AI is, in our organization, we run a program called Project Economy. This is a project team where we invite applications from middle management across all the functions, right? And then we give them a particular use case or a problem statement, right? And then there is a mentor who's going to mentor this entire team. And the key is that these guys then will present to the CXO group, right? And then take that project to its logical conclusion, right? So there is one of the projects which is on entire conversational AI, right? Where I'm mentoring, where there are around 12 people, from finance, from sales, from admin, of course, operations, customer service, IT. And these guys come together and then they come up with, the various use cases and the solution and they go ahead with. The other part that I talk about is the hobby versus scale. You need to take a call whether you want to implement AI for the boardroom or you want to implement AI for your customer. Because when you look at this entire AI, it's going to have some cost, right? Now, who's paying for that cost? It is actually the customer. So you should actually look at the customer first in any of these implementations and say whether my customer would be seeing a value out of it or not. Price to value, right? Because the customer is paying the price for it, right? So these are the two strategies and concepts which has actually helped us, to take the game ahead.
Yeah, love it. And if we had more time, I would really want to dig in further, but I do really encourage you to have a conversation around that over drinks. Ajit, I really wanted to hear from you as well. It's very close to my heart what you and the team have already built as a marketer. I'd love to have you share a little bit about that.
Sure. Hi, and thanks for having me on the panel. So before I get on with our AI journey, just like to share that it was heartening to hear that a lot of us, a lot of us are on the same boat when it comes to AI implementation. So it was a huge sigh of relief, firstly. Secondly, a little bit about our enterprise. Tata Communications started off as a network services company, but it has branched out into various digital platforms and services over the past 7 to 10 years. And AI has been at the heart of everything that we do, whether it is contact center as a service. So a lot of implementations that these gentlemen have been talking about, we end up implementing it for them. Communication platform as a service, AI-based workflows, that's also something that we as an organization have been doing for a long time. Network as a service, finding out faults in your network, ensuring that there is uptime and minimal latency. That's something that we have been doing for a long time. Marketing, it's something that we have started picking up now and over the past 2 years. We started off with sporadic use of AI, which was basically chat-based, getting content written, but there was no scale in that. And it was also important for us to ensure that there is a lot of human intervention because there is a lot of technical content that we have been creating. But over the past 6 or 8 months, I think we have come to a very strong vision. Some of it, which was covered in most of the sessions that you saw out here by Murli, which was how can we have digital collaborators for every human employee in the organization. So that's something that we have been working towards, but that's something that we are trying to get it up to scale, not really reach there. Some of the good wins that we have seen is that the content that we create have been starting to feature in AI summaries because that's the scale at which we are operating. So we have an SEO optimizer, we have an SEM ad creator. So that helps us create a lot of stuff at scale and deploy them as well. So our go-to-market has improved a lot. But there is a lot of human intervention that still goes into it because it's B2B, it's enterprise. You have to ensure that whatever you put in out there is technically correct and it's not incorrect in any way. So those are some of the challenges that we have been facing. And I think going forward, we will be implementing a lot more agents across the board as a marketing function.
Love it. Thank you very much. And you just touched on a theme that we've heard across the evening is the human in the loop, the human at the heart of it. And that makes me shift over slightly to Nitin, you and how your organization is not only applying AI in really interesting ways across your business, but also how you're thinking about the impact of AI on humans. Oh, over to you.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Kore.ai. Thanks, Christy, for having me here. I represent Indra IVF. I take care of the technology function. And IVF, if someone of you or your relatives have gone through this thing, they can realize it's a very emotional thing. It's a very, anxiety-driven things in societies of India. It's also a taboo. People don't want to be associated with that they have gone through IVF. So there are a lot of trauma associated. And when future parents decide it, it's a very bold step that they do, which in other words means that a lot of compassionate and empathetic behavior is needed from a hospital chain like ours who are catering to the services. And the enablement happens through AI. It definitely is helping us in those grounds. And what it brings into picture is not just the self-support for the self-enablement for the patients. It also brings in a lot of empathy-based elements, which at times human may or may not do that well. So there are studies which have shown that empathy level or compassionate level when you talk to GenAI is more than what a human can do, with all due regards to this. So this is the ethos for the organization and where AI steps in our context. And of course, like Axis Bank gentleman was saying, heavily guarded by the compliance norms in the country. So that is one thing that we have to be very cognizant of. Second is on the cyber security aspects as well, because ransom attacks are rampant in this industry. So those are the guardrails under which we operate. Now for us, the AI strategy is comprising of three elements. One is for the core end users, and I'm sorry I call them patients. They are not patients, it's not a medical problem. It's the end customers, I may say, or consumers. For them, how we can provide the self-enablement, and we have done our bit already using GenAI tools, wherein we are giving them the detailed report analysis through the doctors in a GenAI based videos. The actual doctors come on the screen, and then they take them through the reports and tell them what will be the course of action, again in a very empathetic and a compassionate tone. And then there are success calculators which we recently launched on World IVF Day, 25th of July this year. So very new thing in our kitty. And then the second element is, of course, the operational backend efficiencies, wherein things like intelligent document processing or data and analytics play a vital role for our marketing based initiatives. And last not least is the clinical trials, where AI and analytics are helping us to predict the outcomes. So these are the AI things that we are trying.
Thank you very much. And to round us off, Sumant, I really wanted to hear from you. I know you've got a much broader view than most of us, right? And when we had our initial chat, we talked about the pace of adoption, especially, interestingly, in regulated industries. Would love to hear a little bit from you.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sumant. I lead the contact center AI solution of Deloitte South Asia. Now, one of the interesting things that we are observing with GenAI or agentic AI coming in, right? A few years ago, what we saw was AI was typically used in the back end where, enterprises was using to look at stopping a churn or identifying the customer pattern, etc., right? But with these solutions, with GenAI solutions, with agentic solutions coming in, a lot of industries are, bringing this in forefront of their customers. Today we are seeing experience-driven implementation coming in, where, large institutions want to define what kind of experience they want to give, and then build the solution using these agentic or generative AI solution. And one of the most interesting things that we are seeing today is, banking or BFSI or financial institutions, which are highly regulated industries, are adopting and taking, these new age technologies to their customers, right? And this is a phenomenon that we are seeing globally. And now, in few minutes or hours ago, we saw the Axis Bank story also coming out, right? So we are looking at financial institutions enabling their customers with GenAI to give excellent, customer service and sales and marketing experience to them. And especially in contact centers, we are looking at three key areas. One is the inbound segment, where we have customers calling the financial institutions for services such as credit card activation, etc., which are sort of now handled by AI agents. Or it could be your outbound calls that are going out to customers, wherein we are looking at, the bank providing very targeted offers to specific customers through these, AI agents.
And really what I've taken away from all of the answers, and thank you for that insight as well, is really no one can afford to be a laggard in the times that we're in. And so thank you, everyone. I know we had a couple more questions prepared, but I'd like to turn it to the audience. We've seen some really great engagement in the previous sessions. So are there any questions for our panel that you'd like to raise at this point? Any volunteers? All right. I've got, oh, there's one. Sorry, I can't see it so bright. Please.
Implementation of AI is of course is a journey specifically. In terms of starting of that journey, what exactly the parameters we need to consider for an insurance company, if you can highlight that? Because implementation of AI is end-to-end required, but ultimately it's a journey of continuous improvement. And to start this particular journey, what are the things you need to highlight? That's my question.
See, if you're starting a new journey, first thing is how fast can you fail? Be prepared for that. If you're not prepared for failing in an AI implementation, perhaps you're not going to achieve your goal. Right? The other is depending upon the use case. Right? So for example, if, like we were talking about contact centers, right? So if you are deploying conversational AI in a contact center, right? The first thing that you should measure is that what is the quantum of the total interaction at the call center that you are trying to cater through the AI solutions. The second is the efficiency of that entire solution. End to end, how much number of transactions or interactions the AI was able to handle. Right? If you are able to measure these, the others are byproduct. The productivity benefits, the cost benefits, all that will come in.
So maybe I'll just add to what he said. One of the things that where we are seeing, we had a lot of discussion around scalability, right? One of the areas where we see organizations not scaling up in their AI journey is the wrong choice of use cases that they are picking, right? Many a times what we see is organizations pick up very complex journeys or very complex use cases, and what should ideally be developed, failed, fast, takes ages for them to realize that it's not as what they had initially thought, right? So one is identifying low complexity, high impact or high value use cases and starting with that. And the second thing is the quality of data that you would be using for building these solutions. Many times what we observe is during the development or during the implementation, the data set that is used to train the AI models versus what is actually seen in the production, they're completely different. And that yields, in terms of low efficiency of the solution and a lot of investment going in with very minimal investment. So these are like two of the most common challenges I've seen with a lot of enterprises.
Yeah, if I may add, see, at the start of project itself, you should be clear what are the North Star things that you want to target, what are the critical KPIs which will make the project deemed successful, and what is the business impact it has. So that should be very clear at the beginning, and as you progress, those should be your guiding things, that are we on track or not. And finally, when the project sees the daylight, you should map it with the initial things. It should not be like a supermarket syndrome that we went to buy something and we bought something else because it was at discount. It's not like that. You have a clear objective, like said by gentlemen, that it needs to have the impact to the organization. Technology should be feasible. With that you start, and you should achieve exactly what you thought of achieving, not something around it. So those would be interesting things.
Just a small addition to what the gentlemen have talked about, and it's more or less in the same lines but in a different way. I would say, what's your end destination that you would like to achieve? And you would ideally have to start from that. In case of Nitin's case, it was empathy at the heart of everything. So all his AI implementations are focused around that area. In your case, if it is insurance, if it is about serving customers, if it is about giving them that security, how can you enable that in the best way possible? So take a step back, leave the technology aside, first look at what your organization is actually there for, and then try and see how AI can actually assist that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any other questions before we wrap it up, please?
So Sumant, how's been your experience with the Indian regional languages in the contact center space? I mean, anything apart from pure English or pure Hindi, let's say English, Tamil, Telugu?
So, thanks. And very important question, what we are observing in market. In India, if you see any region you go, there is no pure dialect that is spoken, especially when it comes to business transactions, right? So if, we are serving a customer, let's say in Karnataka, it's Kannada plus English will be the language that will be spoken, right? And similarly, it could be English or any of the regional language. It's a combination of languages. Now, before the advent of GenAI and LLMs, we were seeing, a very specific keyword-based solutions coming in. But with LLMs coming in, the accuracy of languages, especially in the regional areas, have increased. Additionally, you have, players like Sarvam.ai and others who have built their large language models specifically for the domestic market, specifically for the Indian market, right? And we are, while we spoke about banking and other industries, government and public sector is one of the biggest industries which is adopting technology, right? So today, a lot of our implementations that we are doing is serving our, governments, whether federal or whether the regional governments, and these are for citizen engagement, citizen benefits, or at specialized sectors like income tax, sales tax, etc., where you are able to converse with a virtual agent or with an AI agent in your native languages. Now, in terms of accuracy, we are not at a very high level of accuracy, but because these are all business or these are all transactional in nature, we are seeing a lot more adoption of native languages, specifically in the India context.
And let me just give you one example. Earlier we were talking about picking the right use case, right? Or maybe not taking do the heavy lifting upfront, right? But in our organization, when we started with the entire conversational AI bot journey, we actually picked the most difficult use case, which was deploying a conversational AI bot for the farmers. So Indian farmers who are our customers for crop insurance, if there is a flood and they need to report a claim, they need to call the call center and report that within 72 hours. That's the norm by the government as well. Now, think of an example of Maharashtra where you have floods and there are farmers calling you. They would want to converse in Marathi. Right? Now, if I were to tell you that we want to deploy a bot there, somebody would say, hey, you're actually shooting the duck, right? Because it's a new technology, multilingual, the Marathi and farmers. But we actually did that. That was our first bot. The success was 94% of the farmers were happy to converse end-to-end with the bot. 6% where the technology failed, it had to be transferred to a human agent. Right? So it depends upon the use case, the objective that you want to achieve.
And see, this is an area where Indian models would stand apart, right? So your Bharat Gen, that's an entire entity created by the support from the government, and it is combination of all the IITs coming together and creating models which would be largely trained on Indian languages, and that would be available to public at large. And you can look at Basini also, again fantastic model if you are working on Indian languages, right? So that's the kind of differentiator probably that Indian models will bring in terms of understanding the Indian context, Indian languages.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I love the conversation that is building here, and I really want to continue that conversation over drinks and dinner. So I'll wrap us up here. Thank you to our panelists. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for the questions.